Hello and welcome back to Podcasts with Ali and Aiza. It's wonderful to have you with us again for a session of real, applicable English conversation. We are so focused on helping you bridge the gap between textbook English and the authentic way native speakers communicate about their everyday lives. I'm Ali, and I'm ready to dive into one of the most fundamental topics of all.
And I'm Aiza. The topic we're tackling today is the essential daily routine. It might sound simple. You wake up, you go to work, you go to sleep. But the vocabulary, the phrasal verbs, and the idioms we use to describe this routine are rich, detailed, and completely essential for fluency. We're going to walk through our entire day, from the very first moment we stir in the morning until we finally unwind at night, giving you all the language you need to make your own story sound natural and engaging. We've structured this as one long, flowing conversation using plenty of long paragraph exchanges and natural English to give you the most authentic practice possible.
Before we dive into the specific times and actions, I want to talk about the concept of routine for a moment. I used to think of routine as something boring, something restrictive, but lately I've started seeing it as a rhythm, a predictable flow that actually makes life easier. It creates a reliable anchor for the day, wouldn't you agree? Knowing that certain things happen at certain times reduces the number of small decisions you have to make, which is huge for mental energy. It moves things from conscious decision-making to automaticity. And that vocabulary, automaticity, is excellent for describing habits you don't even have to think about anymore. This automaticity helps us save our valuable brain power for the more complex decisions required in our jobs.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. For me, a routine isn't just about efficiency, it's about ritual. I think of my morning as a series of small, personal rituals that prepare me mentally for the intensity of the day ahead. If I skip my routine, I feel completely off kilter. That's another great expressive phrase for you listeners, off kilter. It means unbalanced, slightly wrong, or not quite right. My routine provides a sense of synchronicity, meaning everything works together harmoniously. When you talk about your day, you shouldn't just list events, you should describe the connection between those events. Use transitional phrases like subsequently, following that, or once I've tackled that step to show how one action leads seamlessly to the next, giving your English a much smoother, more cohesive sound.
That's so true. Let's make those connections right now by starting at the very beginning of the day. And this is where we immediately run into our first subtle vocabulary choice. We all know the difference between waking up and getting up. I wake up when my consciousness returns, but I only get up when my body actually leaves the bed. For me, there is a painful 20-minute gap between those two events. I suffer from a severe case of what I call snooze button syndrome. I set multiple alarms and I intentionally budget 15 minutes just to hit the snooze button repeatedly. It's a terrible habit, I know, but I simply cannot leap out of bed the moment the alarm rings. The phrase leap out of bed is a great energetic verb to use if you are one of those rare morning people who genuinely loves mornings.
That's so funny. I am the complete opposite. I usually stir, meaning I start to wake up slowly, about 10 minutes before my alarm is actually set to go off. And when that alarm hits, I am out. I can honestly say I never hit the snooze button. I don't give myself the option. I believe in what I call the 10-second rule. I count backward from 10, and when I reach 0, I have to be standing up, no excuses. Once I'm on my feet, first things first, I head straight for the kitchen. I can't function without water, so my very first action is filling a tall glass and drinking it down. That's my personal Kickstarter for the day, and it's much better than saying, my first activity is.
Your Kickstarter phrase is a brilliant example of natural conversational English. Once I finally do get myself out of bed, usually after the third or fourth alarm, my first non-negotiable ritual is to make the bed. I know this is a highly debated topic, do you make your bed or not, but for me, it's a necessary mental reset. It's the first small win of the day. I might say I always see to it that my bed is perfectly made before I leave the room. The phrase, see to it, that means to ensure or make certain that something happens. And it sounds much more formal and dedicated than just I make my bed. It communicates a genuine commitment to tidiness and order, which helps me feel ready to face the world.
I admire your discipline. I'm afraid I tend to leave my bed unmade until later in the day, or sometimes until I remember to tidy up before bed. My morning priorities are definitely centered around my appearance and hygiene. Right after I've had my water, I proceed to the bathroom, and here is where we encounter some essential phrasal verbs. I brush my teeth, of course, and then I wash my face. I prefer to splash cold water on my face because, like you with your Kickstarter, that cold sensation is what truly wakes me up. The expression wakes me up here is a phrasal verb meaning to make me feel alert, which is far better than simply saying it makes me feel less sleepy.
Ah, the cold water approach. I prefer to head straight for the shower, and I have to say I like my showers intensely hot. A quick, warm rinse simply won't do. I need that steam and heat to completely loosen up and feel truly clean. I take a shower every morning without fail. And after that, the sequence continues. Following that, I get dressed. It's important for our listeners to note that we don't say, I put on my clothes. The fixed phrase is get dressed. And my work uniform is very relaxed, so I usually throw on a pair of jeans and a casual shirt. Throw on is another great phrasal verb, meaning to put on clothes quickly and casually, often without too much thought, which speaks volumes about my laid-back approach to fashion before 9 a.m.
I completely relate to the throw-on phrase for casual dressing. However, my job requires me to look professional, so I often have to dress up a little more formally than you. To dress up means to put on smart or formal clothes. I usually wear a blouse and a nice skirt or trousers. I still aim to be comfortable in my own skin, which means feeling relaxed and confident in my clothes, even when teaching. After I get myself together, meaning I prepare myself and make myself look presentable, it's finally time for breakfast. I'm usually absolutely famished by this point. Famished is a brilliant, stronger word for very hungry.
Famished is perfect, and breakfast is where our routines diverge dramatically. I confess, my breakfast is purely about speed and caffeine. I usually whip up the simplest thing possible, and that verb, whip up, means to prepare food very quickly. I whip up a slice of toast, sometimes two, and have a gigantic mug of strong black coffee. That's my fuel. It's not the healthiest, but it does the trick, which is a handy idiom meaning it achieves the desired result. In this case, waking me up and stopping my stomach from rumbling before I have to deal with customers.
Well, I consider breakfast to be the most important meal of the day, and I genuinely enjoy making it. I often opt for something lighter but nutritious like yogurt with granola and fresh fruit. Opt for is a good formal verb meaning to choose. And here's another key difference. You love coffee, but I have a serious tea habit. I stick with green tea every single morning. I simply can't stand the taste of coffee. After we've both had our sustenance, we move to the final morning chore before leaving the house, tidying up. I always make a point of washing my cup and putting my plate straight into the dishwasher. I absolutely can't abide having dirty dishes piling up in the sink. Piling up means gathering in a stack, and can't abide means you can't tolerate or stand something.
I'm right there with you on that one. A messy kitchen sets a bad tone for the rest of the day. I take care of the dishes straight away, meaning immediately before heading out the door. That's the signal that the home part of the routine is finished and the day's work is about to begin.
So, the clock is ticking. We've successfully navigated our morning rituals, and now it's time to face the outside world. This part of the day, the commute, is where the language of transit becomes vital. For me, my commute is a luxurious 10-minute walk. I am lucky enough to live within striking distance of my office. Within striking distance means very close to something. I can set off from my apartment at 8:50 a.m. and still be at my desk by 9 o'clock. It's incredibly convenient and means I don't have to contend with the daily traffic jams or worry about bus schedules.
You truly have the dream commute. I am definitely not within striking distance of my workplace, so I have to contend with public transport every day. To contend with means to struggle with or deal with something difficult. I live about 20 minutes away by bus. I always take the bus, never say ride the bus in this context, and the bus stop is just a short stroll from my front door. My routine involves getting to the stop just in time to catch the 8:30 a.m. bus. I find that my commute time is excellent for listening to podcasts, often English learning podcasts, of course, or just watching the city whiz by.
That's a great use of that travel time. And whiz by is a perfect dynamic verb for watching things pass quickly outside a window. For those listeners who drive, they might talk about braving the rush hour traffic or having to allow for extra time for unexpected delays. The time spent traveling is often called dead time, meaning time that is generally unproductive. But that's why people try to maximize it by listening to audiobooks or making phone calls. Whether you walk, drive, or take the metro, this period is all about transitioning from the private sphere of home to the professional sphere of work.
Yes, and the language reflects that transition. Once I alight from the bus, a formal word for getting off, I have a short walk to the shop. I love the feeling of arriving. When I finally clock in, which means formally recording the time I start work, I feel ready to dive in.
And now we're at the core of the day, the start of work. The language here shifts to one of organization and priority. In the education sector, my first hour is a crucial time for preparatory work. I don't just sit down. I immediately try to tackle my inbox, meaning I check and deal with my emails. I need to get a clear sense of what happened overnight and what needs my immediate attention. Then I spend time setting out my materials, making sure the whiteboard is ready and all my lesson plans are firmly in place. The goal is always to hit the ground running when the students arrive. And that phrase, hit the ground running, is a fantastic, energetic idiom, meaning to start an activity very quickly and immediately without needing time to prepare.
That is such a useful idiom for professional life. I can relate that to my job at the bookstore. When I clock in, my first job is completely mechanical. I need to get the store ready for business. This involves a sequence of tasks: opening the doors, turning on all the necessary equipment like the computers and the cash register, and generally tidying up the displays from the night before. Because the mornings are usually very quiet, I get a small window of time for deep work. Deep work is focused, distraction-free work. I use this time to organize the shelves or process new inventory, tasks that require quiet concentration before the inevitable hustle and bustle of the afternoon crowds arrive.
That quiet period must be bliss. The hustle and bustle of afternoon crowds is a lovely phrase for describing busy, noisy activity. My morning is definitely not peaceful. Once my students file into the classroom, another excellent verb for entering in an orderly line, the speaking and teaching begins immediately. I often have 3 consecutive classes, which means a lot of energy and concentration is required. I only get a very short 15-minute breather mid-morning. A breather is a brief pause for rest. During this time, I dash to the staff room to top up my tea and quickly check in with my colleagues, meaning to briefly speak to my coworkers to exchange information.
That term colleagues is definitely one to highlight. It's the professional word for the people you work with. We hear it all the time. Unlike your short breather, the quiet morning in the bookstore allows me a chance to touch base with my own small team. Touch base is an idiomatic phrase meaning to briefly make contact with someone, usually to give or receive an update. We touch base on what needs to be done that day, who is handling which deliveries, and who will be manning the cash register. The morning flies by quickly as we get all these preparatory tasks completed. And then, before you know it, it's time to take the first substantial break of the day, lunch.
So we've made it to the middle of the day, and for me, the 1 p.m. lunch break is a true highlight. It marks a necessary interruption to the flow of work. I try to be very disciplined about my lunch. I aim to bring a packed lunch from home most days. This is a very common phrase, packed lunch, meaning a meal prepared at home and carried to work. It helps me stick to a budget, and honestly, it's usually healthier than the quick options near the school. I'm often eating leftovers, which is a fantastic word for food remaining from a previous meal, usually dinner the night before.
I admire that dedication to bringing your own lunch. I'm less disciplined, I confess. I often grab a bite to eat at a small cafe nearby. Grab a bite to eat is a casual, quick way to say you are getting a meal. The food might not be gourmet, but it does the trick, which is an idiom we used earlier, meaning it serves its purpose. Whether you bring lunch or buy it, the language we use for this break is all about recharging. We might say we need to step away from the desk or take a breather, even if it's just for 30 minutes, to re-energize for the afternoon ahead.
And speaking of the afternoon ahead, immediately following lunch is what everyone calls the afternoon slump. This is that period, usually around 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., when your energy drops and your concentration starts to wane. To wane means to decrease in strength or intensity. It's a real challenge, especially for me, teaching those afternoon classes. How do you power through the slump? Power through is a great phrasal verb meaning to continue working or enduring something difficult or tiring.
That slump is a serious battle. Teaching after lunch when my students and I are all feeling a bit heavy and sleepy is definitely difficult. My strategy is usually to shift the focus to more interactive activities, but personally, to power through, I usually top up my energy with another cup of strong black coffee. Top up means to fill something that is not quite full, in this case, my mug and my caffeine levels. For our listeners who work in offices, they might simply need to step outside for a few minutes to get some fresh air, or perhaps take a quick walk to shake off the sleepiness. The idiom shake off means to get rid of something unwanted, like the feeling of tiredness.
That shift is key. In the school, the afternoon requires me to be highly proactive, constantly engaging the students so they don't lose focus. I can't really afford to let my mind wander. To wander means to move aimlessly. That constant need for engagement actually serves as a natural barrier against the slump, preventing my concentration from waning. It means I usually manage to keep my focus sharp until the clock winds down towards the end of the workday. I have 2 more classes to teach, so the energy output is considerable.
As the workday draws to a close, usually around 6 p.m. for me, the language we use shifts again, focusing on completion and departure. My last hour is dedicated to wrapping things up. To wrap up means to finish or conclude something, and it's much more natural than saying I finish my work. I spend time finalizing cash reports, clearing my desk, an important physical act to signal the end of the day, and drafting a quick to-do list for the following morning, just so I can hit the ground running again tomorrow.
I do the exact same thing with the to-do list. It's important to set the stage for the next day before you leave. My workday finishes earlier at 5 p.m. My closing duties are academic, but equally necessary. I clock out at 5 p.m., and my final 10 minutes are spent shutting down the classroom. This involves a sequence of precise actions: wiping down the whiteboard, logging out of the computers, and making sure all student work is filed away. I always perform a final sweep of the entire space before I leave. The feeling of being definitively over is almost palpable.
Once you've successfully clocked out and locked up, there is that beautiful, freeing moment of transition. For me, that transition begins the moment I step foot outside the shop. I take my 20-minute bus ride home, often listening to music or just decompressing. Decompressing is a great word, meaning to relax or relieve stress after a period of work or tension. It's vital to decompress before you cross the threshold into your home life, and it helps you shift your mental focus away from the day's stress.
I couldn't agree more. That period of decompressing is essential for creating a mental barrier between work and personal time. The absolute first thing I do when I get back to my place is a ritual everyone can relate to. I get changed. I immediately take off my work clothes and slip into something much more comfortable, often loungewear or athleisure wear. Loungewear and athleisure are modern terms for soft, comfortable clothing designed for relaxing at home or light activity. It's an instant signal to my mind that the time for relaxing has officially begun.
That feeling of slipping into comfortable clothes is truly the best part of the evening. Following that, my focus immediately shifts to dinner. I tend to eat a little later, closer to 8 p.m. Like you, I enjoy cooking, finding it a great way to unwind. Unwind is another perfect verb for relaxing after stress. I don't aim for anything complicated. I usually whip up simple meals like a pasta dish with fresh sauce or maybe some grilled chicken with rice and salad. When I'm truly exhausted, however, I definitely fall back on ordering takeout from one of my favorite local spots. Fall back on means to rely on something when other things have failed or are unavailable.
Falling back on ordering takeout is a universal experience. I usually eat a little earlier, around 7:30 p.m. But regardless of the meal, the post-dinner routine is rigidly fixed. The dishes must be done right away. I can't stand leaving a messy kitchen overnight. I need to see the counters clear and wiped down before I can truly feel relaxed. That sense of orderliness is part of my personal wind-down process. We both seem to share that strong feeling that cleanliness contributes directly to a peaceful state of mind.
Absolutely. A messy kitchen is a major source of stress. Once the kitchen is spick and span, a fantastic idiomatic phrase meaning perfectly clean, it's finally time for our chosen evening diversions. Diversions are activities that divert your attention from work or serious things. My main diversion is reading. I am an avid reader and often belong to an online book club which meets every Wednesday. Reading helps me switch off my professional brain. To switch off is a vital phrasal verb here, meaning to stop thinking about something. I love curling up with a physical book, not a phone or tablet, as the light is much better for preparing the brain for sleep.
I love that you deliberately switch off with a book. My evening diversions are more technology-focused, I admit. I usually settle down on the sofa and binge watch a comedy series on a streaming service. Binge watch is a modern term meaning to watch multiple episodes of a program consecutively. I also get online to play video games with friends a couple of evenings a week. For me, the interaction and concentration required for the game is actually a great form of active relaxation because it completely blocks out any work thoughts. It's a structured way to let off steam, which means to get rid of tension or strong emotion.
That letting off steam is crucial. I also set aside specific evenings for exercise, often going to the gym on Tuesday and Thursday. Setting aside means dedicating time for something. This is a great example of managing your commitments. It prevents the gym from falling by the wayside, which is the idiom we learned earlier about things being neglected due to busyness. I also try to touch base with my family via video call a couple of times a week, as that connection is important for my overall sense of well-being.
Now, let's talk about the final, most crucial phase of the daily routine, the bedtime ritual. This is the final sequence of actions designed to prepare the mind and body for sleep. We all know the basics: brushing your teeth again, washing your face one last time. But the key English phrase here is winding down. Winding down means to relax gradually before going to sleep. For me, the essential final step is setting my alarm for the following morning. I need to do that to relieve any anxiety about oversleeping.
That setting the alarm is a great final safeguard. My ultimate wind-down activity is reading in bed for about 20 minutes. I deliberately avoid my phone during this time. I know many people have the bad habit of scrolling through short videos or checking social media while in bed. The blue light from the screen actually suppresses melatonin production, which is the hormone that helps you sleep. I found that swapping the screen for a book genuinely improved my ability to drift off. Drift off means to fall asleep easily and gently.
That is excellent advice. The ultimate goal of the bedtime ritual is to ensure you get enough restorative sleep. I aim to be asleep by midnight, but ideally, I need a solid 7 to 8 hours to feel truly refreshed in the morning. If I don't get those hours in, I know I will wake up feeling sluggish, and the entire routine will feel like a struggle. Sluggish is an excellent adjective for feeling lazy, tired, and slow.
And that brings us full circle. We've gone from stirring in the morning to drifting off at night. The daily routine is a continuous cycle, and the language we use to describe it helps us understand not just what we do, but how we feel while we're doing it. We've covered everything from packing a lunch to powering through the slump to slipping into loungewear and unwinding with diversions.
We hope this extensive single-episode deep dive has given you a robust, practical toolkit for talking about your own life with confidence and fluency. Remember, the English you use to talk about your day is the English you use most often. Mastering the phrasal verbs like top up, power through, and slip into will make your conversation sound incredibly natural.
Absolutely. Your challenge now, listeners, is to take two of the new phrases, perhaps can't abide and fall back on, and use them in a sentence today to describe your own reality. For instance, I can't abide a messy desk, so I always clear it before I leave. Or, when I'm too exhausted to cook, I fall back on ordering takeout.
That is a fantastic challenge. Now, for our final thought and our recurring question, what is your favorite part of the entire daily cycle, and why? Is it the peaceful morning when you set the stage for the day, or is it the evening when you finally switch off and unwind?
Please share your answer in the comments or on social media. It's the best way to practice this new vocabulary. Thank you so much for joining us for this massive lesson on the language of routine on Podcasts with Ali and Aiza.
Keep learning, keep practicing, and we'll talk to you all again very soon.